point where it could be death. Okay. The first one is, okay, the WNBA and WNBPA agreed on a groundbreaking CBA in 2020. Okay, so they agreed on that CBA. That was cool. Now, this was important.
Stephen A. Smith just dropped a reality bomb that has the whole WNBA running for cover and completely upends everything we believe to be true about the future of women's basketball, so you might want to sit down for this one. We were all aware of the elevated level of stress. Although we were aware that the locker rooms were divided, no one anticipated that the players' union, believing they had the upper hand over the league owners, would practically blow up their own contract this early. The worst aspect, though, is what everyone has been muttering about but hasn't yet spoken aloud. Stephen A. is criticizing the league for more than just their timing and greed. In a sense, he's verifying that the move has already been made by Caitlin Clark. It's not a public letter shared on social media, nor is it a news conference. Without a doubt, though, Clark has effectively quit the drama, and everyone who believed they could intimidate the Golden Goose and still be paid will suffer greatly as a result. Since this is the domino that set off the entire chain reaction, let's get right to the crash out. The WNBA Players Association formally chose to terminate their collective bargaining agreement 2 years ahead of schedule. They tore up their contract, to put it simply. They observed the crowded arenas, the private aircraft that were at last being chartered. Considering the sharply increasing TV ratings that broke records every night, they concluded it was time to call for a significant salary increase. They want a piece of the pie, and they want it now. On paper, that makes sense given the league's exponential growth. However, Stephen A. Smith highlights their grand plan's one obvious, fatal flaw. They are asking a company that has only been profitable for 5 minutes to give them a fortune. Additionally, they are deliberately undermining the one and only reason money exists at all. Regardless of how they handle the celebrity, they are wagering the farm that the audience will stick around, and it's a risk that might bankrupt the league as a whole. Caitlin Clark made a gesture that was more powerful than any picket sign or irate tweet could ever dream to be while the union was busy ranting about demands and equity. The unrivaled league was rejected by her. For those who are unaware, Unrivaled is the brand-new, ostentatious 3-on-3 league that was started by Brianna Stewart and Nafi Sakir, the same seasoned players who have been competing against Clark and, in some eyes, continuing to ignore her all year. They reportedly offered her equity in the league, the red carpet treatment, and over $1 million for just a few weeks of work. Since WNBA players have typically had to play year-round in order to pay their mortgages, it was thought that she would jump at the chance, but Clark declined. This is her tacit resignation, according to Stephen A. She abandoned their ecosystem, their money, and their league. Instead of giving them the power of her name, she decided to play golf, take a break, and move away from the commotion. "I don't need you, but you definitely needed me," is the message sent by this subtle power maneuver. The WNBA establishment detests hearing Smith analyze the situation with such brutal honesty that he truly went off the rails in the best conceivable way. He refers to it as the greatest blunder of the bat. In a vacuum, the union and veterans' demands for equality and revenue sharing are quite reasonable. But you cannot expect a portion of Caitlin Clark's earnings while allowing players to pursue her on the court and downplay her influence in the media. Throughout the season, we have witnessed the hard fouls, the side glances, the removal from Olympic rosters, and the persistent media shading. According to Sayas, their jealousy is making them oblivious to the realities of business. While attempting to prepare the goose for dinner, they are attempting to squeeze the golden goose for golden eggs. It is not possible to have it both ways. Additionally, they are wagering that Clark will simply stay by opting out of the CBA now. The average WNBA player needs this CBA raise to survive and live a comfortable life without going overseas to play in hazardous or exhausting conditions, even if the feelings in the locker room do. Caitlin Clark doesn't, with her massive Nike deal rumored to be worth nearly $30 million plus huge endorsements from Gatorade, State Farm Wilson, and others. Her WNBA salary is essentially pocket change, less than 1% of her annual income. Stephen A. Smith vehemently emphasized this point. The only player in the league who will be wealthy for the rest of her life even if she leaves tomorrow. The union is acting as though they have control over the entire ecology, crashing out and making demands. However, the newbie they've been hazing is the only one with real clout. The players are not compensated if the league locks out. But while she works on her putting stroke, Clark will continue to cash checks from Nike. This tirade exposes more than just the players. The leadership of the league is also being called into question. Stephen reiterated remarks that the current leadership's handling of this transition is the worst in the world.
Why?
Because they permitted a hostile workplace to develop, centered on their greatest asset. Every other company in the world safeguards its rainmaker. If a salesperson accounts for 80% of your revenue, you need make sure they are content, safe, and supported. Rather, as the conversation became poisonous, the WNBA leadership did nothing but watch and allow the jealousy tales run amok. Their biggest star is separating herself from the other members of the league's inner circle, and they are currently engaged in a labor war with the union. It's a managerial catastrophe. Additionally, the executives will have to explain to the NBA Board of Governors why they missed out on a billion-dollar chance if the league closes due to a lockout or strike. Telling the veterans to calm down was something they were too scared to do. A warning shot over the bow of the entire sport, Smith's final take was menacing. He cautioned that we are approaching a tipping point where silence turns into a departure. Clark won't be the one suffering or pleading for a settlement if the union strikes and the games are suspended. She plans to pursue a career in broadcasting. She will either create her brand on her own or play just in international exhibition matches for millions of dollars. If the animosity persists, the resignation from the WNBA may become formal. Thinking they were driving a tank, the players opted out in a game of chicken with the league owners. However, they overlooked the fact that Caitlin Clark's automobile, which was leading the way, had an eject button, which she simply pressed by declining unrivaled. We must examine the history of disrespect that brought us to this point in order to fully comprehend the scope of this crash out. It took time for this to occur. Before Clark had ever played a single professional minute, it began. Do you recall the remarks made by famous people like Cheryl and Diana Taurasi? The cautions that she wouldn't rule and that reality was approaching. That established the mood. Every veteran felt deputized to humble the newcomer in this setting. And they made an effort. They gave her a blitz. She was polluted by them. They stood 94 feet away from her. And in spite of everything, she smashed both the rookie scoring and assist records and led a lottery team to the postseason. Stephen A. notes that rather than commemorating this, the union and the veterans intensified the narrative that, we all built this. You don't overlook the person who ultimately turned the lights on for the rest of the globe by choosing not to participate in the CBA, even though it is true that the league stood on the shoulders of giants. The union is now attempting to profit from the publicity that Clark brought while denying that she was the one who did so. Both fans and business experts find this level of cognitive dissonance puzzling. Additionally, there is the incomparable element that cannot be emphasized. The league was meant to serve as the link. Stewart and Collier started it to provide WNBA players with an opportunity to remain in America and earn real money during the off-season. The secret to their broadcast deal was landing Clark. There were rumors that major networks were holding off on making a substantial broadcast package until they saw if Clark signed. Clark did more than simply conserve energy by declining. She probably cost her competitors millions of dollars in lost sales. Their wallets are the target of this passive-aggressive attack. According to Stephen A., this was not an accident. Clark is intelligent. She is aware of her worth, and by refusing to participate, she demonstrates just how important she is. If Unrivaled finds it difficult to attract viewers without her, it confirms what Sayes has been saying. Not just for women's basketball in general, but also for Caitlin. Let's examine the crash-out psychology in more detail. Why now? Why opt out 2 years early? The union claims they want to negotiate a new model that reflects the transformation of the league. They want higher salaries, better pension benefits, and improved travel standard. These are all noble goals, but the timing suggests they believe the leverage will never be higher than it is right now. They are afraid that if they wait, the hype might die down or the TV. The numbers may reach a plateau. However, as Stephen A. points out, the irony is that they run the risk of completely stopping the momentum by causing instability and threatening a work halt. If the league enters a lockout, fans who just tuned in to watch Clark might not stay. The casual fans will switch back to the NBA or NFL and may not return if the 2026 season is postponed or canceled due to avaricious discussions. Inside a paper house, the union is toying with fire. The racial dynamics and media coverage that have stoked this fire were also discussed by Stephen A. Smith. He has spoken out about how, in contrast to how they cover celebrities like Ozza Wilson, the media has covered Clark. Although he stresses that business is business, he concedes that race has an impact on marketing. What sells is what you market. To save the NBA, they promoted Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Whether it was fair to the other players didn't concern them. They were concerned about maintaining the lights. According to C's, the WNBA is at its Magic and Bird phase, but the players are behaving as though they belong to a socialist collective where everyone should be treated equally, regardless of who is selling tickets. The wedge is being driven by this participation trophy attitude regarding media attention. Clark is sold out. Arenas on the road. The Fever outnumbered the Las Vegas Aces, the reigning champions, in terms of attendance. It is a fact of statistics. The union alienates the business partners who are supporting their raises when they disregard that fact in favor of equal outcomes. By the end of the season, we saw Caitlin Clark appear worn out, emotionally as well as physically. It wears her down to be under continual observation, have her teammates lip-read her, and have her body language analyzed. Her retreating is a preservation tactic, according to Stephen A. She anticipates the crash out. As she witnesses the union honing their weapons in preparation for a labor conflict, she decides to leave the blast zone by remaining in Iowa, playing golf, and spending time with her family and boyfriend. She is cleansing herself of the WNBA circle's toxins. This is risky for the league since there is a chance that she will permanently leave if she finds that she is happier outside of the WNBA. Athletes have previously left early. Andrew Luck, Calvin Johnson, and Barry Sanders. The money won't keep them if the surroundings are too poisonous. Additionally, keep in mind that Clark already has the funds. Since the golden goose analogy perfectly captures this situation, let's examine it in more detail. In essence, the farmer is the WNBPA. They have a goose that produces golden eggs. Rather than providing the goose with food, constructing a lovely nest, and keeping it content so it will lay more eggs, they are grumbling that the goose receives more attention than the chicken. They are threatening to blow up the coop after pecking at the goose. A better deal for the chickens will be demanded by the CBA. From the rooftops, Stephen A. Smith is yelling that this is economic suicide. The gold vanishes if the goose takes off. The TV networks that inked these agreements, ESPN, ION, and ABC, largely predicted Clark's future. These networks will employ terms to withhold payments in the event that she resigns or the league locks out. The revenue sharing that the participants desire. Additionally, there is an intriguing rumor about the connection between the union leadership and the agents. It is said that many agents are irritated. They are aware that all boats are lifted by a rising tide. Other athletes got endorsement deals thanks to Clark's presence. For 25 years, the league charter flights were a topic of contention. Clark achieved what the union had battled for decades in just one season. And rather than expressing gratitude, the attitude has been, "It's about time. We deserve more, by the way." Stephen notes that there is a lack of thankfulness. The veterans are upset that Clark didn't have to go through what they did, but that is the essence of advancement. They believe that they endured so that she could soar. In order for the settlers to prosper, the pioneers endure. The veterans are upset with past, but they are venting their resentment on a 22-year-old Iowa girl. What comes next? The billion-dollar question is that, over the course of the upcoming season, the deadline for the new CBA discussions will approach. The possibility of a strike will loom over every game and press conference. According to Stephen A., if games are missed, the media would turn against the union. The general public supports Clark. The ratings attest to this. The sales of jerseys attest to this. The public will probably show little sympathy if the WNBPA attempts to portray themselves as victims while requesting millions of dollars. Particularly if the storyline is that they forced the world's most popular athlete to quit the sport. Clark has the her check is an unmatched card. She has demonstrated that she can continue to be relevant for months without playing basketball. Can the other players say the same thing? Do the other players have State Farm commercials airing during the Super Bowl if the league ends? No, the court is necessary. The court is Clark. On the international scene, we also need to address the Caitlin Clark impact. There are indications that European teams are getting ready to make huge offers. Offers for her to participate in a few exhibition games that would dwarf WNBA pay. Clark might embark on a global tour if the WNBA goes into lockout. Consider the Caitlin Clark Global Tour selling out arenas in Shanghai, Tokyo, Paris, and London. She would earn more money in a month compared to the whole WNBA salary. Unaware that globalization offers Clark a way out, the union is collapsing. She may play basketball without the WNBA. Although the WNBA is the most practical choice, she has the passport and star power to use her skills elsewhere if it becomes too difficult. Stephen A. alluded to this by pointing out that she is no longer merely an American basketball star, but rather a global icon. Because the specifics are fascinating, let's go back to the unparalleled rejection. The league's founders, Stewart and Keir, attempted to maintain their composure by claiming they had an abundance of